Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, the preamble is over. It's finally here. It's game week.
It's time to get fired up because we are right in the heart of that time of the year where like nobody does anything. When you're right between Christmas and New Year's, I mean, it takes superhuman effort sometimes just to kind of move your feet because it's a great time to be lazy. But you know what? The action's about to start. We are days away from the Peach Bowl in Arizona State against Texas. This is real. I've been waiting for like that shoe to drop to where I just wake up from the dream, like, I don't know, Newhart style or one of those old sitcoms where it was all a dream to begin with. This is real, Sun Devil fans. ASU is in the college football playoff. It's about to get kicked off. We're going to see what these Devils have. They're a big underdog to the Longhorns.
Thankfully, we have a guest who probably understood the Newhart reference.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of our audience.
Yes, he's big in Dallas, Texas in the early 80s.
There you go.
We'd watch that and then watch Tim Healy do the sports report, you know.
There you
So,
go.
of course,
Makes
we
sense.
have another Texan here at the table. Unfathomably, your Speak of the Devil's debut.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. I have Brad on all the time, and if you were wandering around here too, we would grab you, Joe, and be like, "Hey, we need you right now."
I can wander around places. I'm a pretty good wanderer.
All right, so get him in, wander around the building. We grab him on. But yeah, we're so busy with the Extra Point TV show, the Extra Point podcast, which you were in charge of posting, by the way. So thank you, because sometimes he'll be trying to post his own podcast, and we're like, "Can you post the Extra Point one?" So this is exciting. I love when, different areas of your life combine. The University of Texas, went there from 1996 to 2000. Love Texas football. When you cover sports, it becomes a job. This is kind of like my, guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go read a lot about auto racing. I will do.
You got Matt Heppy for that.
That's a great point. Yes. But I mean, I'll do the auto racing report on the news. I'm going to spend my time and my brain power to, read about my Longhorns.
Of course. I don't even think we got your name in the introduction.
Right. Yes,
Mark
assumed,
McClune, sports director here at 3TV CBS 5.
Needs
Arizona
no introduction, but we'll sort
Yeah,
of
I
get
mean,
one.
I
anyway.
definitely
Yeah.
know. I definitely do.
Long
Yes.
time Valley Sports Institution.
Well, thank you. That's more for my wife who does the weather. I'm just like April's husband. She does the weather in Good Morning Arizona. I'm just out here kind of like messing around and watching sports. But going back to watching Tim Healy in Dallas, Texas as a kid and getting to do this for a living is about the coolest thing that you could possibly do.
A lot of full circle things. That's what I think of here, just being in this studio here, because like this is obviously the network where my dad was, and when I was growing up as a kid on News Channel 3 back in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, a lot of full circle stuff coming around.
There's a picture of him somewhere around here looking like super distinguished.
Yeah.
And it might have gotten thrown away. I think I told Brad
we
about it
looked
at some
a
point.
couple years ago.
It's in a closet. We need to find it, and like it's almost like an oil painting.
Oh wow.
It's
okay,
like
yeah.
if we could find that would make 2025.
Like he was some war hero or something
Yes,
like that.
he
Another one
was.
I don't know if it exists anymore, but at the old Don and Charlie's they had like a banquet hall and had caricatures of the first Phoenix Cardinals team from '88, and it had some of the reporters like in a little corner. So there's a caricature that was of my dad. So every time I go to Don and Charlie's, would take pictures of it. That's of all the things that we mourn in Tempe that are all the businesses that are closing, that was
Right.
one that certainly hit home
they
the
might
closest.
have kept that or a picture of that because I did a story before that was torn down.
Yeah.
And they wanted to try to preserve that.
Awesome.
So it's in like the did it get put in
Is
the
this like a
bottom of the
national
hotel
treasure
there?
vault or something?
They would-
We need to
I don't even
Right.
know what became of that. Yeah, there were a lot of big talks.
There might
Yeah.
be like a corner in the new hotel there that's Don and Charlie's, but I haven't followed
I
up.
think okay.
All right.
Here I am starting fires and not putting them out.
We got our to-do list for
Yeah.
2025. We got to get the maybe some like you got true crime stuff here, or not
do.
that it's a crime situation, but it can be like a investigation that we can talk
But
about.
do you see why I love Arizona sports? Like I love it. I love Texas sports too,
Yeah.
but I absolutely love Arizona sports. So cannot wait for New Year's Day.
All right, so let's, of course, we had to bring you on as a Longhorn. So give our listeners and viewers, what are your Texas bona fides here? Because, I mean, there's very few people I know that would be better guests to preview such a momentous game, the quarterfinal matchup between ASU and Texas.
Well, I do binge listen to my Texas Longhorn podcast every week. So basically,
There you
I'm from Dallas, moved to Houston, played high school football in Houston, really wanted to play like college football, and just ran into a couple of guys really hard as I could that were playing college football, and was like, I think they're going to play college football, and I need to find another avenue. So I went to the University of Texas, majored in broadcast journalism, and 4 years there was fantastic. Got to shoot all the games on the field, got to follow the team to the Big 12 championship. Just so fun, and been here since 2006 covering Arizona sports. So to see the Sun Devils rise like this. I mean, they played. I went to the Holiday Bowl in 2007. Like that was exciting. That doesn't rival this. This is fantastic. Texas is big. They'll beat you up on defense. I mean, I love the story of Arizona State. I love the people inside the building have great relationships, but this is a tall task for Arizona State.
What's your view on the whole horns down?
Bring
movement?
it. We're in your head,
okay.
man. I mean,
So-
I know I'm quoting Baker Mayfield here, but we're in your head. I mean, A&M sings their whole song about us.
That is something that fascinates me. I saw the Texas A&M fan base for the first, because I didn't go out to the game. I believe it was in Houston when ASU played A&M in that opener in 2015. But I went out Globe Life Field because ASU baseball played in a tournament that included Texas A&M, TCU, and USC just this past March, and it obviously was like a home game for A&M, even though it was 20, 30 minutes away
because
from
it's the
TCU.
Aggies. They have nothing else to
And
do, but yeah.
And to hear the
Together
fight
and
song
sing.
and to read
Yeah.
the lyrics, it's one of those things like you hear the song and you just hear the beat of it, and it's okay, it's a fight song. But then you read the lyrics, like, this is like a scorned ex-lover. My goodness, like they're obsessed with them.
In the actual fight song itself, they reference
It's the whole song. It's Saw Varsity's horns off, and then they start swaying. Saw, and it's honestly, it's beautiful to watch. If you ever had a chance to go to College Station,
Yeah, there was a measure of jealousy inside me when I saw
Yeah.
their fans wave, the sway and everything like that, and then a lot of us, I'm sure, saw the. I'm not sure what they call it, the yell leader, or that video that went viral from Texas A&M from this football season, which didn't put them in an amazing light.
There's
I guess
some
you could say.
culty behaviors over there, right?
So it's interesting. So
yeah, you could
it's-
saw Sparky's horns off too. I didn't think about that. We could,
I guess
we could
that's-
maybe come up with our own little song
There
of
you go.
Sparky.
Well, maybe perhaps FASU pulls off the upset.
I mean, look,
I mean, because Bevo's not going to be there. He's been banned.
That's true.
yeah, okay, this is ridiculous. Sparky gets to go, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I realize it's like a dude in a suit, but it's like we can't bring Bevo, and I mean, sure, leave Bevo out of it. But this whole Uga got to go to the big
Wow.
to the SEC
He almost
championship.
died in the process.
That's a good point. Yes, but yeah, not letting us bring Bevo, I think there's room. There's room for
$3 billion stadium. There's got to
Yeah,
be.
is that the class?
Yeah.
I didn't even. Is there a substantial reason to it? Are they?
They say
citing-
less room, not necessarily less room for him on the sidelines, but less room for all his stuff. He's got to bring the trailer, and he's got to have the pen, and he's got to not try to kill somebody. Which,
If Colorado was in that same position, do you think they'd allow Ralphie?
I'm surprised they still have Ralphie. I would think by now they would, be like this is
That is one of the coolest things that I
Absolutely.
get to see.
But Colorado certainly is not in the college football playoff.
No, they're in the what is it? The poor man's Big 12
People's-
championship.
They're
or
playing
the,
another
yeah,
Big 12 team in a bowl game because
We'll
of
see who
Pac-12
actually
alignment.
plays.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So before perhaps we dive in to talk about the actual game itself, I believe we chatted a little bit, but there was maybe some overlap at Texas with a certain alum, Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. All right. You want the whole story now?
do it.
Probably a good time for it. Okay. So I pledged Delta Tau Delta at the University of Texas, Gamma Iota, and Matthew McConaughey's picture's up on the wall. He had graduated maybe 5 years before I was there, but he was still hanging around town. He had shot Dazed and Confused, and you would see him like at post game shows. I worked at the radio station in Austin, and you always knew it was him because he had a jersey on, and the back of it said McConaughey.
Right,
So you're
yeah.
like, that's probably him. But yeah, good dude. I mean, talked to him a couple times, but he was always kind of drinking beers and
Just kind of living life.
Yeah. Trying to find some Copenhagen to the post game show. But so when I was at the Delt House as a pledge, that we would do these big elaborate builds like above ground pool for Beach Bash with the Tri-Delts, and then we did end of the year party, the Mekong Delta. We put telephone poles in the grounds, which I'm thinking about this. We had engineering students, and like the professors would come over, and the fire department would make sure it's code so they didn't fall. But so we had this.
Was there like a crusty dean involved? Because I'm getting like an Animal House,
there
like
wasn't
college
a whole lot
movies
of
kind of thing.
Yeah. The police was there, so
Oh,
it's
there
like,
you go.
okay, well, if they're gonna sign off on the fire department, we're good. There were some old professors. Yeah. It was cool though. It was right by campus. Like you couldn't miss it. But so we had a table about this big in our shed where we kept all of our wood, and it was like one of those 80s pool like tables out by the pool. It was like yellow with like frosted glass. Did y'all ever have one of those growing up?
Sounds about. I could picture it. Yeah.
Really uncomfortable chairs. There
Yeah.
were no chairs. There was just a table, and it was McConaughey's table. And it was like the Ark of the Covenant. Like we had to move it. You would get out the wood. You had to move
Someone
McConaughey's
looks
table.
directly at it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And no one ever said like. I remember being like, "Is he going to come back to get it? Because it's not that nice of a table." Like,
Is it still there?
well, ahead in our story. So it was after one of our builds, and I was like the last pledge there, putting away all the wood, and I threw this 2x4 up on the top of the wood, and I watched it hit, and it comes sliding down. This is my good McConaughey impression. Comes sliding down and just smash right in the middle of McConaughey's table. I pride myself on, honesty, integrity, trying to do the right thing. Okay. But we were in the middle of pledgeship, and it was not pleasant. So what do you think I did?
Yeah, I was going to say, you were a pledge at the time.
Right.
Brad and I were both pikes at ASU, so we've been through that life of a fraternity pledge and knowing when you kind of have to, do what's best for business.
So knowing there was no build for a couple weeks, I took the 2x4 out of the table, put it back on the stack, closed the door and locked it. 2 weeks later, one of the older members of our fraternity opens the door to look at the wood situation and comes running in for dinner and goes, "Who broke McConaughey's table?" And I didn't even tell any of my pledge brothers. I was like, "Man, wow, that thing broke."
That was a good first move.
Man, that stinks. Yeah. So it was me, and if I have to do like some calisthenics or something,
I was say, what's the statute of limitation
on
hazing?
I don't think at 46 years old I could. You'd have to do like the.
We did bows and toes.
Yep.
We have basically a plank.
Yep. Bows and toes. Yeah, that was painful. So I broke McConaughey's table. It was me.
So if we see him like tracking you down on the sidelines or something like that, or if we,
I don't even think he wanted it. Like, why would he? I think he just left it like and I want to ask him at some point. Like, did you just were like, "Hey, you guys need a table?" And someone was like, "Yeah," and then it became like, "Well, we have to hold on to his table. He's a famous movie star." So
I wonder if that story, if you were to tell him that story and you're rolling it, if it would be anything similar to me, like the story that I told Kyle Murphy, who's a starting offensive lineman for ASU and their '96 team that went to the Rose Bowl, and we've become great friends with him. He's really active on Twitter and that sort of thing. And I remember when I first got to befriend him in recent years, it was like, hey, there's no way you're going to remember this, but the Nebraska game, I was like a 14-year-old kid. I ran on the field and I slapped you on the pads and ran about my way. And it was just like, I was thinking, it's like, it's a cool thing. Hey, we met in a way then, and now we're kind of friends now. The world's coming full circle. He's like, yeah, man, I remember that. I was pissed off at you because I had just gotten my tail whipped by Nebraska. And he's like kind of going into it. Like I was waiting for like the smile and the chuckle and no, I'm just kidding, man. I was like, number one, how do you remember that? And number two, that's kind of interesting. So it'd be interesting to see if McConaughey is like, yeah, I was wondering where my table was, and I saw it broken. If it comes back to that.
Goals for 2025. Do we have video of that? Have you ever checked? Because we have all that Nebraska like field stuff.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
a deep dive.
Yeah, that would be.
Okay, was it near the goalpost near the then Tillman Tunnel that was torn down?
If I remember correctly, it was somewhere in the vicinity of the it was the west sideline going onto the field, because I think at that time ASU, I don't know where ASU's team which sideline they would have been at, in those days.
Because did they switch?
They did not terribly long ago, I believe within the last 10 years or so, when they moved the student section. I think there was something along those lines.
Currently they're on the east. No. Erickson, they were on the east side. Graham, they were on the
now they're on the
east
west.
side.
Yeah,
now they're when did they switch?
I think it was in the Graham. It might have been when they moved the student sections from that one chunk on the east side to the end zones.
Because I hated the east sideline. I tried to get Dennis Erickson right before the kickoff to the first game of the season one time, and it was about 103 degrees. And I ran over there, and the mic didn't work. And he's just and it was set up. I was the sideline reporter on Fox Sports Arizona, and I'm like, hold on 1 second. Yeah. And I ran back to the audio guy, and I'm like, hey, it doesn't work. And he goes, all right. And so he gives me a mic and say he's the camera. Dennis Erickson's the camera. I got to about right here, and we were out of cable.
Can you come toward me?
Can you just a little? And he's just, fire in his eyes, man. Wow. He's about to kick off the football
man,
season.
Yeah. Dennis Erickson.
Yes. That's how I always wondered with the interviews before they go, halftime when they get coaches on the field before they go into the tunnel, and especially if things are not going well for that particular team. I'm like, man, my heart goes out to the people in that circumstance.
You're in the lion's den, but I mean, I love it because if you do well, it's the best feeling in the world.
Sure.
If you don't, and usually there's so much adrenaline, one thing or two is going to go wrong. You just got to roll with it. And you learn a lot about broadcasting having to do stuff like that.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is about the time, we would dive into our Know Your Enemy segment.
Yes.
we can't say call you an enemy by any stretch, but let's know your opponent. Let's go behind little Longhorn lines now.
Yeah, and the thing is, we must be really good and nice people and friendly people because we use that preface quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's like we call it know your enemy, but these are actually good friends of ours or people in the conference that, we don't objectively hate quite yet. I'm actually kind of happy that Kansas State won their bowl game, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you from ardent never back the pack.
Now,
Joe
I still
Healy.
have the same feeling for Colorado, Utah, and of course, the University of Arizona. So, but that being the case, before we jump in and talk about the Longhorns, just give us your take on this magical season for ASU, from the position that you have in this market. What has it been like to see this ride these last few months, especially on the heels of what's been going on the last couple of years?
Well, for me, it goes back to covering Chaparral High School when Kenny Dillingham was an assistant over there. And man, I should have made better friends with him when he was like the lowest guy. I mean, I was over there all the time with Charlie Regal and calling their games. So great relationship with Charlie, Jason Mons, Sean Aguano. Done some stuff with Kenny here in town, like when he first got here, the sit-down interviews, and you just feel the passion. Yeah. And to see that translate in 2 years is one of the best sports stories that I have covered here. Yeah. And the fact that it's so communal. There's so many people with ties. There's so many local guys. The local guys that want to play here. The rise of Arizona football. It's magical, and I am going back and forth. Is it more magical than the D-backs World Series run, the Suns Finals run, the Cardinals Super Bowl run? I mean, maybe I'm prisoner of the moment, but I'd put it up there. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, and especially with what's gone on the last couple seasons, and just from our perspective, thinking, man, this is going to be a long rebuild, and maybe they get to this. Well, not even this point. Like the 8+ win thing could be a few years in the future, but not now. So, all right, going to put you on the hot seat here.
Yeah,
12-team playoff. Some people like it. It's taken quite a bit of heat in recent weeks, even by national media. What are your thoughts on it? And then, if you were the king of college football, what changes would you make to it, if any?
I might tinker a little bit with letting some of the bigger schools in, but I wouldn't be married to it. I mean, I like that Ole Miss lost to Florida and they're out. Yeah. I like that Bama, even though they beat Georgia, stumbled at the end of the year and they're out. So I don't mind this. I think sending SMU up to Penn State, Indiana going to Notre Dame. It's never going to be perfect, but it's way better than what we've had before. I think the novelty of these home playoff games you stick with for a little while. Mm-hmm. One thing, maybe you shrink it after that, but I don't mind this at all. But I do feel like there is a real emphasis of letting the little guy play. Maybe too much of an emphasis, but I think you got to do that the first year. I think you got to make this something where it's not like, okay, this is the SEC playoff.
Right, you get 4 teams from the same conference where the regular season doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the head ball coach there for the University of Texas, Steve Sarkisian. Obviously, our listeners and viewers and fans of ASU have seen him at a few different stops, and he wasn't doing the kind of things at Washington, USC that he's doing at UT. So I know that Texas is a very resourceful program and can build some strength around him, but it's not like USC and Washington are big slouches. So what is Sark doing now that's being so successful, especially these last couple years where he was struggling to be anything more than 7-win Sark as we knew him?
And I remember very distinctly with that USC game, his last game there. I think it was his last game there, and the substance abuse issues on the sidelines and just how uncomfortable that was, and seeing him be able to put his life back together and go work for Saban and go work for the Falcons. And I think what came out of that was a much just a story of resiliency, but just the hammer in the football. I mean, he was out at USC and yeah, they're talented and would throw it all over the place, but the identity of the Texas team this year is to just pound you, it's just hammer you. And I think ASU could really struggle with that on January 1st because it's old school. It's just, I felt bad for Texas A&M when Texas, went in there and they'd been waiting 15 years to play us, and they're singing the song about us, and we just ran right through them. Yeah. It was I'm bullish on Texas really, having a shot to go all the way. I want another shot at Georgia, but let's go one game at a time here.
All right. So, of course, we'll get to the ground game in a moment, but quarterback's most important position on the field. Quinn Ewers has had some great moments during his collegiate career. Maybe some struggles here at times. And, of course, kind of Arch Manning lurking in the shadows a little bit. What do you make of Quinn's play so far this year? And do you think that we might see a situation, of course, not injury related, where Arch has some moments against ASU?
We haven't seen him throw the ball in like 3 months. Except in warmups. I think Quinn Ewers is one of his strengths is the fact that he's a little nonchalant. And I think that helps him because he's just able to go to the next throw, go to the next play. It does drive me crazy when he's putting the ball on the ground, he's giving it to the other team. I do think he's a guy that we might look back at in 10 years and be like, wow, he's a great Texas quarterback. Remember all the heat he got? But I think the heat is well-deserved because of the turnovers, because of not being able to put teams away and not being able to get over the hump. I mean, we should have won the SEC championship. We couldn't get the ball in the end zone late in the game. We couldn't get the ball in the end zone in the Sugar Bowl last year against Washington and should have played the national championship game. And that's why you're judged by. They did get hammered by Georgia at home. He didn't have his best game. He battled an ankle. I think he's a pretty tough guy. I think we beat Bama a couple years ago at home. If he doesn't get hurt in that game, I think he's a really good quarterback. Now, the interesting thing to me is going to be, does he transfer and play another year of college football? Because it's clearly Arch's team next year. Does he go to the NFL? I think he can make more money in college football. So where's he go? Hopefully not A&M.
So then also, as Kenny likes to say, or said a couple days ago about the running back tandem of Wisner and Blue, the Thunder, Lightning, and also Super Lightning. So you guys, you have a little bit of everything back there. Some dynamic backs, both over 100 yards in the opening round. What makes those two guys so dangerous?
I think just the offensive line. I mean, they just hammer people. A&M's defense was no slouch either. I mean, Wisner is an all-time back, and I would have liked to see him get a little more. As fired up as I am about Scadaboo going to New York, and I think, maybe I'm a little too close to the situation. I think he should have gone there. I thought Wisner just did. Yeah. Maybe, didn't have some of the great games, didn't have some of the great numbers, but was one of the best players in college football this year and just getting better and better and better and better. And then Blue comes in and spells him. And it's just really hard to stop. And I think if you look at the Texas offensive line and you look at ASU's defensive front seven, especially with Simmons out, the first half, I think it could be a long day. Stranger things have happened. I want to see ASU stay in this game. I just don't know with their front seven how they hold up at the point of attack.
Definitely a concern. You're looking at kind of the pass catcher of this team. What's the latest on the status of Isaiah Bond?
Yeah,
obviously what his deal is, but also some other guys have been stepping up in his absence.
Yeah, so Bond's out with the ankle, which I guess is like, well, if Jordan Tyson's out, our best receiver's out as well. So it's. I think throwing the ball is going to be. I don't know that we're going to be talking about it after this one. Does that make sense? I think it's. You've got. Okay, Matthew Golden. You've got Ryan Wingo. You've got Gunnar Helm, our big tight end, who's kind of like the Trey McBride. And I feel like Gunnar Helm could catch 20 passes in this game, and we're just going to run the ball and throw it to him. I don't know that we have anybody that can take the top off the zone, but I don't think that's going to be the game plan. I feel like they're going to be like, okay, we have a size advantage here. Like Zach Swanson, who played defensive line at Texas from Brophy and transferred to ASU, was telling us the other day, just kind of went on and on about just how he was treated at Texas and didn't like it and was basically told he could stay there, but he couldn't play football. And so he's in the rotation at ASU. And then you look at the guys in the rotation at Texas and you're like, those are big human beings. And Swanson's a big human being. Yeah. But it probably behooves him to come here because he's in the rotation and he gets to play at home. And I just think, maybe Scadaboo can run over everybody, but I think it's going to be a long day, and I think it could be a quick game too with the amount we probably will want to run the ball.
So switching over to the other side of the ball, that Texas defense has been pretty fierce, both against the pass and against the run. A lot of single-digit national ranks in terms of all a lot of these critical categories. What has just made this defense so effective?
I think forcing turnovers. So what is the number here? I just pulled it up. It's the best pass defense in the country. And my guys over at the On Texas Football podcast, one of my favorite, Bobby Bird, and I used to cover high school football with him in Texas. Great story about Bowie and Round Rock Westwood one night. Great story. I'll tell that off the air. O.J. McClintock had a big touchdown run and someone pulled his jock and he was running down the field. He looked like a comet running down the field. He went to Texas and played defensive end, but he's a great quarterback. Reminded me of Tommy Frazier. But, okay, back to our point. All right, so we have the best pass defense in the country, and then I think the turnovers that we force. And it's
an obscene amount of interceptions.
What's that?
An obscene amount of interceptions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's because we get home, we have great linebackers, we have dump truck defensive tackles, we have dudes that are nasty, and we have dudes that'll hit you. And as much as I feel like I'm depressing you saying all this stuff. I feel like I need to be like, no, it's gonna be fine. But Andrew Makuba, the Clemson transfer who knocked the Georgia quarterback's helmet off. I mean, I feel like that's just a different level of attitude. Now, that being said, we could have an off game, but we have dudes. We're the University of Texas, and we recruit dudes, and it's I'm not getting on the field over there in my athletic peak. And there's just a lot of guys, and we're too deep. I mean, Ethan Burke, the defensive end who made the big play at the end of the A&M game, I mean, he's listed second on the depth chart right now. Colin Simmons, an edge rusher who's freshman of the year, he's listed as second on the depth chart right now. There's just a lot of speed and a lot of athleticism, a lot of ability, and I think they're pretty well coached.
So though that opening round playoff game against Clemson was a 2-score victory for the Longhorns, the Tigers were able to do some things that the UT really hasn't allowed much this season, especially through the air. Yeah. What do you think that ASU can pull from that film and maybe apply in this ball game?
I think attack the middle of the field. That's what I saw on the opening possession in Cade Klubnik. They really exploited Texas, and I think they spread them out and went right down the field on the opening drive. As the game wore on, I think the athleticism kind of showed there that Texas had more. I mean, we did take our foot off the gas and let them right back in the ball game. So, I mean, you kind of got to pick your poison here because, okay, here's the other number. We are 111 in the country in giveaways. So Texas is going to give ASU a chance, to win the game. Can they do it with their receiving core? Can Xavier Gilroy and Melquan Stovall, can they take the top off the zone? I mean, it just seems like that the leading receiver every week has either been Scattaboo or Jordan Tyson, right? I mean, ASU's going to kind of have to reinvent themselves. Now, having said that, we did watch Kenny Dillingham beat UCLA last year with no quarterback. Yeah. So I cannot wait to see what they dial up. I cannot wait to see what Marcus Arroyo dials up.
And though I wouldn't say Iowa State certainly doesn't have the talent that Texas has, statistically Iowa State had one of the best pass defenses in the country going into that Big 12 championship game. So that at least allowed ASU to kind of prepare for some strength there. And obviously they passed that test. But again, it's a huge leap from Iowa State to Texas.
So, assuming that Dillingham and Marcus Arroyo don't bring the swinging gate back like they did against UCLA last year, and putting you in a little role play situation, you're Marcus Arroyo. What kind of game plan? No one, you know what you have with the Devils. No Tyson, also ferocious defense at all levels. What kind of blueprint are you drawing up?
Well, okay, so what's the best thing that you have? Is it Sam? I mean, I would say Scattaboo, but I don't know if Scattaboo is going to be able to run over 5 guys. And I feel like he might try and he's out of the game. So I might not hand it to him the first play of the game like the Big 12 championship and just be like, go set the tone. And then he just, is smashing people. I mean, maybe Sam Leavitt turns into Superman, which he's really good. Like, I'm talking like might be the best quarterback in Sun Devil history. Am I wrong? I mean,
as far as someone as a redshirt freshman doing what he's doing, I mean, that's very far beyond anybody at that, especially at that stage that I've ever seen.
Like he might have a better game than Quinn, and I think Quinn will play a good game. I think Quinn, he's been raked through the coals. When you're the Texas quarterback, you have that coming. But I mean, Leavitt doesn't make mistakes, and he's just, I mean, just his makeup it's. I mean, I think it's an NFL makeup, and that's the kind of stuff that leads a locker room. That's the kind of stuff that produces upsets. And, he can stand in there and take a shot and get up and go make another play. And then you have these world-class athletes on the field for Texas being like, who is this guy? Like, stop.
I was actually on a guest on a radio show in like ESPN Radio Mississippi earlier today, and they asked me, like, where do you think ASU has an advantage, if any? I threw out quarterback because I do think that with Sam Leavitt's ability to protect the ball, and Quinn, as you mentioned, kind of maybe a little nonchalant, maybe with the turnover numbers, that, if Sam Leavitt turns into Superman, that's ASU's best chance and best path. We'll get into the keys of the game, but I think that's the best chance ASU has if Sam Leavitt just goes insane.
And I would almost make Scattaboo. I would not first play try to hammer him into the line. If he goes nowhere, then you're like, okay, well, what do we do now? I almost might get Leavitt rolling out, making a play, making a throw, just something. I mean, flea flicker, something to just. I mean, who's the fastest guy on Arizona State's team, you think?
That's still standing,
right? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Guillory's been having great success deep. He's been maybe dial up a little play action or something.
I mean, just something to just get everybody. Okay, let's go.
Everybody's probably thinking, like Scat run on first down, set the tone, but Maybe not. Use it against them.
And if they could complete a pass against this pass defense, that would be a really big shot for ASU for sure.
And just get them on their heels and then just scat, go over the top. I mean, if you can get over the top of them, that's when this gets fun, and that's when I'm like, oh my God, who am I rooting for here? I don't.
So let's keep you in that role play mode. Staying on the topic of Sam Levitt, if you're Kenny Dillingham, Marcus Arroyo, what are you telling your redshirt freshman quarterback going into the biggest game of his life? And oh, by the way, you again don't have your number one receiver. You're probably not going to have him no matter how far ASU goes.
I think you're like, hey Sam, why don't you tell me something? I just think his makeup. I mean, every time he talks, he just seems to get more and more mature and more powerful and more of just a dude who's leading this program, and you mix that with scat, and it's powerful and it's fun. And another story. So my son the other day was like, hey, my friend invited me. We get to go to Arizona State football practice. I was like, well, that's super cool. And the dad had a connection with one of the coaches, and it turned out to be Marcus Arroyo. They go way back. So I walked into practice, and Scat wasn't doing media that day, but Scat's sitting there, my son's videoing him, asking him questions. I'm like, we can't even do that. And Scat and Sam were like super cool to him. And again, maybe that's some recency bias, but just seeing how they can turn it on, turn it off. And I think about like Sam's pedigree. Dad played linebacker, brother played in the NFL. I mean, he's beyond his years. Will he get something thrown his way that he hasn't seen before? That's something to, I think Kenny will have answers for everything. I think Marcus Arroyo will have answers for everything, but it's going to be a challenge.
All right. So, obviously there's a lot of big name players on this Longhorn roster.
Yeah.
Who might be a guy a little under the radar, one on each side of the ball that, could be an X factor in determining, I guess, Wednesday's outcome?
All right. So I pulled up the depth chart on our lads. I'm going to go with Michael Taff, our free safety from Westlake, who was Cade Klubnik's best friend. And he made some plays. I think he makes a lot of plays, but he also can miss some tackles. So I do wonder if ASU is going to go right at him, the free safety, and I'm make him tackle Scat. Be like, hey, all right, because I mean he's not the biggest guy in the world. He is super athletic. So that might be something to watch right there. Okay, on offense, I'm gonna go Arch Manning. Because does he? I mean, you get inside the 10-yard line. Is he just a house call? Does he? And when Arch scores, it's like when Larry Fitzgerald used to get the ball. Like the whole fan base just loves him. I mean, he's the backup quarterback. He's the most popular guy in town. Now, if it's like week 3 next year and they're like 2-1 and he's throwing a couple picks, everybody might be like, "Hey, Quinn, can you come back from Berkeley?" Oh, I don't know. Who else needs a quarterback?
A lot of people.
Maybe it's the New York Giants. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully not Arizona State. That's
maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Quinn. I could see Quinn as a Steeler.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We'll see.
What's happening? That's a different podcast.
So Longhorns obviously a heavy favorite in this one, in the ballpark of about certainly a 2-score favorite going into it. But even though this is a playoff game, if ASU were to win, how do you think the Texas fans would receive that, and how would that affect their view of Steve Sarkisian?
Yeah, it wouldn't be pretty, especially after last year. I mean, I think first year of the college football playoff, you're like, okay, you got in. I mean, you took it from 5-7 to national semifinal last year to college football playoff. Yeah, you got upset. That happens. But this might turn into a Ryan Day situation if there's not, consistently knocking at the door for the national championship. I think everybody wants another shot at Georgia. And I definitely think Texas wants a shot at Oregon. I mean, Dylan Gabriel just hammered us when he was the quarterback of Oklahoma, and everybody. That's going to be a storyline in round 2 if Texas can advance.
Yeah. Obviously, can't even measure how huge this would be for ASU if the Sun Devils were to pull off the upset. But how big would it be for the Big 12 conference? Obviously, Texas was there from 96 up just through last season, and gauging by social media reactions and other fan bases, it seems like there's certainly some bad blood there. So how big would this be just for the conference that ASU is brand new to get a win in this circumstance against this particular team?
Okay, what just came to mind was the WNBA All-Star Game.
Okay.
And when the WNBA All-Stars beat Team USA here in Phoenix this summer, everybody's like, oh, yeah. And they went on to win the gold medal, Team USA did, but they didn't beat the WNBA All-Stars of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese.
Yeah.
And they'll always kind of have that. And it's like, okay, we have this whole narrative, and this one doesn't really fit. And I think then you can, for recruiting in the Big 12, it would be massive. Because it'd be like, do you really want to go be second string at Texas? Why don't you come out to the Big 12, be first string, and go beat them in the playoff? You know, and I think, you know, something can be said for that. I think everywhere in the Big 12.
All right, so that's a good look at Texas. Now I think it's about time we turn the page into our official game preview.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of jump into it right here, talk about the Longhorns, and please tell us what we need to know. This is our research here, so just a very high-level view so far. The 12-2, both losses, of course, coming to Georgia. First, that 30-15 defeat October 19th in Austin, then that 22-19 overtime loss in the SEC championship game to the Dogs, that 38-24 win over Clemson in Austin in the first round of the college football playoff. Punched Texas ticket to Atlanta to face ASU. That's how we are where we are right now. Just the second all-time meeting between these two schools. I was at that game in 2007, that Holiday Bowl.
I was there too.
52-34.
I got in the Sun Devil TV show that we were with the band. I was in my Texas jacket. We were surrounded by all my Sun Devil friends.
Oh, man.
They were throwing ice at me.
That was one of the ASU. I feel like, because I think Texas was, you know, one of the, you know, highest rated teams that was not like in a BCS game that year. And ASU's had weird luck with that on multiple occasions. They played a really good Kansas State team in the Holiday Bowl in from the 2002 season, played Boise State in a Vegas Bowl. Then those are like top 10 teams. ASU's had some weird luck of playing like really good teams that are just left out of like the top tier.
And that kind of launched Colt McCoy and that whole team winning that game.
I think Jamal Charles, that big game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
that was
I'm looking up who we lost to that year, but carry on. Sorry, I didn't mean to. You got me thinking.
So, of course, as he's looking for that, first year in the SEC for Texas, the second straight college football playoff appearance. Before these last 2 years, the most recent times that UT was in that national championship picture in terms of like at the end of the year. 2009, losing in the national championship game. Of course, winning in 2005 at the Rose Bowl against USC. For my money, quite possibly the best college football game I've ever
got to be there
watched.
For that too.
Yeah, I mean that was unreal stuff. That year, I was glad. I was happy with that one because that was the year that game day came here. When ASU was playing USC.
Terry Richardson at the half takes it to the house. Arizona State has USC beat. Sorry, is that
might be? It's one of those games you end them at halftime and then nothing else happened in the third quarter.
Then Reggie Bush happened.
Yeah, and Lendale White and the Heat. It was October 1st and it was still hotter than all get out there. And that T-Rich punt return. I don't know what the decibels were, but that was as loud as I think I've heard.
Have y'all had him on? Did you ever get T-Rich on here?
That's like because he was well done before. I'm trying to think if we would have had him on like for a U of A show, or if we have. I've got a line for him, so we got to get him. He was.
I will download that podcast.
He was a dangerous guy. So jumping into Sark, we talked about him a little bit earlier. His fourth season at UT, 11th overall as a head coach. Like we talked about, kind of remarkable the turnaround that he's had because that 7-win Sark thing was definitely a thing, especially at Washington. And kind of forgot we talked about it on our last show that ASU, if ASU wins this game and beats Texas by a Hail Mary, that would not be very off-brand because ASU's beaten Sark with Hail Marys on 2 occasions.
Oh wow!
I don't know if it was technically like the last play of the
Danny
game. Hail Mary
game. Oh my gosh,
Danny Sullivan and Chris McGahey in
with
2009.
the greatest celebration ever. Danny like squatted. And he
had no idea what's going on. Yeah, that was when my seats were in the loge, and I could see like Chris McGahey. Like no one was even anywhere near Chris McGahey for that touchdown. Then obviously he was the coach of USC for the Hail Mary. So if that were to come full circle here,
oh my gosh,
that could be a thing as well. A lot of familiar faces on both sides. I mean, I ran through the list. It's Xavier Alford, Prince Dorba, Troy O'Meara, Jake Smith, Zach Swanson. I don't know if Jamon Tapp is still technically
with the team. He's been practicing. So, there's 6, right?
The Texas Devils.
Yeah, all that. And then on the other side, you've got Jermaine Lole, which is, a great story. He, just went through absolute hell. I know he lost a lot of family members, through the pandemic. And I'm a believer that, like, not all transfers are meant the same. There are some that, like, they didn't do it the right way. Some do it the right way. He's a guy for me is, like, one that's perfectly okay to cheer for, especially what he did for ASU and what he's gone through. So it's cool to see him wrapping things up. And he's a contributor. I'm saying he's playing in every game, like a reserve lineman there for the Horns.
Right. It's like we were saying, man, if you're in the 2 deep at Texas, you're a dude.
Yeah.
It's
And thankfully, they
Arch is second string.
And thanks, and
most popular guy in Austin. He can run for mayor. Yeah.
A belated thank you for hiring U of A's defensive line coach and taking some of those guys
you're
over
welcome.
there and depleting
That's
their
what happened
roster.
this year. That's
a big deal. And then some local names too. Christian Kark from Mountain Point, Santana Wilson from Desert Mountain. It looks like long snapper they have on the roster from Williamsville High. So even though these teams have only played once all time before this, there are some storylines of some.
I think the fan bases would be fun. I think a big party. Oh, I'm bummed I cannot go because I currently am on the no-fly list with a air bubble in my eye from a torn retina. So probably too much information. I'm on the injured list.
Okay,
so Gina Maravilla and Brad Denny will be providing the analysis. Are you around too? Are you going to Atlanta?
I'm going to be sticking home. I was wondering, I didn't do anything on my own accord. I was wondering if Santa Claus or someone that I might be related to that's very well connected with the Son of a Football program might have some in mind. But you know what?
Now that the road curse is officially broken.
Maybe you and Spaghetti Joe can make a little road trip. He was looking to get out there too after leading the Sun Devils to the Peach Bowl victory in 1970, the quarterback.
We could just
on here.
Do a road trip and just film the thing. And
if I saw correctly, speaking of the Peach Bowl, wasn't Heinz Ward also an MVP of a Peach Bowl? He threw for 400 yards.
I forgot he was the quarterback. That comes up once a year and you're like, oh yeah, Heinz Ward used to play quarterback. yeah.
There you go. Well, man, how about it? The Peach Bowl's been kind to some people around here. So, all right, let's jump here. Where are we into the offense? So we talked a lot about Quinn Ewers. I mean, I'm sure folks know who he is. He's the #1 overall recruit by Rivals in the 2021 class out of that powerhouse there, South Lake Carroll. Began at Ohio State before transferring to UT.
Had a big NIL deal for kombucha. I think he left high school early.
He was like one of the first. I think he was one of the first guy, just off my memory, one of the first guys that I remember hearing about like NIL, especially for someone who hadn't.
And it was like it was so much. It was like, okay, you got it. You're selling kombucha and you're making like $1 million, dude. Like you can, even though he lost the state championship his last year, you're like, go to high. And it was a big deal when he came back to Austin because I think Texas. I mean, that was the worst season they'd had in 60 or 70 years. I mean,
was that the main thing I was going to ask? Like, why did he not stay in state at least? Well, out of high school,
selling kombucha in Columbus. Man.
Is Ohio State like some kombucha capital?
I'm okay. So 2020. I mean, we were stocked. I'm going to have to go back and look at our lads to the. This is the one thing I did not prepare for. The Texas depth chart in 2020 when he came out. But I think it was loaded up after COVID and there just wasn't a real good spot for him. And I think there was a path to play at Ohio State. And then that kind of
still Tom Herman times there?
Yes. Yeah, and I actually don't know the answer to that.
Forgettable time that must have been.
Yeah, Texas depth chart. Yeah, let's see. It was
Well, we're looking through that.
Oh yeah, this is great. This is great podcasting.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Flying by the seat of our pants. That's what we do. This is it's real. You know what I'm saying? I like it. It's genuine. So just to put some numbers on him in his 3 years with the Longhorns, total over 8,500 passing yards, 63 touchdown throws, 22 picks, 7 career rushing touchdowns. He's second team all SEC this year, 12 game appearances, 2,867 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, completes about 66.5% of his passes. Not much of a running threat in the negatives for his net rushing yards, 1 touchdown run for the year. He's got 2 300 passing yards performances, 333 against Florida, 358 in that overtime loss in the SEC championship game against Georgia. Talked about them hammering the ball on the ground. He does 7 games with under 220 passing yards, but again, highly successful team playing in the strengths of what they do.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to go research this a little more because he grew up. There's a picture of him as a kid with a Texas birthday cake. That was where he always wanted to go. But I think it was strictly a financial deal at Ohio State, and I don't have any sources on that, but I think leaving high school, not going and defending your state championship, going to Ohio State, getting paid that getting to wear that mullet. There's a lot to that.
Yeah, he was rocking that look, that Logan Paul, Jake Paul kind of look before it was a thing. He's just
glad that went
innovating NIL and bad haircuts.
I think McConaughey pulled him aside and was like, "Look, man, you can kind of let it. You can get a little flow. We can have a little fun back there, but it's not. Let's be a little more professional here."
So of course, you got Arch behind him, but with as Joe mentioned, the 10 picks there, and overall, like. As many turnovers as Texas generates on the defense, they give it away a lot. 123rd with 23 turnovers, and obviously 10 of those coming from Ewers picks. I mean, how concerning is that proclivity to turn the ball over?
A lot, and that's going to keep ASU in the game because I think Texas it's going to be early on New Year's. I mean, do they go out on New Year's Eve? That might be like, hey, you guys want to come party with these fun Sun Devil fans? I mean, it's going to be that could get the Longhorns, and it's been a long season, and they're college kids, and strange things happen.
Yeah.
And as good as Texas is, they kind of lose focus at times, and we've seen it all year long. We saw it at the end. I mean, they should have won the Georgia game. I don't know why they're throwing 50-50 balls. They're not even 50-50 balls. They're like 30-70 balls. They did the same thing against Washington last year's Sugar Bowl to go to the national championship. I mean, can we get like a little back out of a backfield kind of rub route? But I mean, I think it's like, well, we have great athletes. We have a strong arm quarterback, and this is we're going to hit a little back shoulder fade, and it hasn't worked.
You talk about that going out before the game or the New Year's Eve aspect of things. That I think ASU kind of deserves some of that positively to come back their way. I'm not sure if this would be on your radar, but ASU played in back-to-back those now defunct like Oahu Aloha Bowls, and there were a handful of players that I believe missed the game, one of those games due to food poisoning. Conditioning. That's what Jimmy Butler's out for tonight. Yeah. Conditioning. So I'm not in a condition to play football because I had a bunch of Mai Tais. There you go.
Exactly. Apparently, Texas. I heard this. I mean, I don't know. Again, no sources on this, so I might as well just report it to the masses here. But the '96 Fiesta Bowl, after we beat Nebraska, the Big 12 championship game, came out here and played Penn State and got beat really bad. Mm-hmm. And we're like, we're a good team. What happened? It's like they just came out to the Fiesta Bowl and we're like, Let's play some golf.
Well, I just like
let's have some beers.
The whole legacy of the Sun Bowl, like every year. I mean, there's always some team that just crosses the border for a night out, and you can see what you get.
It's the Tony the Tiger Bowl, though. Now, right?
Oh, that's they did.
Because when ASU won that,
Herm got doused with Frosted Flakes.
The crowning achievement. Was that the crowning achievement of the Herm Edwards era?
We're just processing that. Remember the whole dream sequence thing we talked about at the beginning of the show? That's where processing is at the bad.
Did they vacate the Tony the Tiger Bowl?
Yeah.
No, we're not giving that away. We're keeping that. You can have everything else.
So do you think Arch Manning, of course, like yours, he was the #1 overall recruit. Everybody knows the stock that he comes from, and he's shown quite a bit of talent this year and the opportunities that he's had. What will it take for him to get out there, or is this just the Quinn Ewers show unless something goes catastrophically wrong?
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna ride with Quinn. Yeah. I mean, I really do. If Arch is kind of a novelty, it's kind of keeping him engaged. I think it's his team next year, and Quinn's gonna have to move on. So, I mean, an injury would get him out there. I mean, maybe if Quinn has like 3 or 4 picks, they'll go with Arch. But I think another thing is, you don't want someone to be embarrassed on a big stage. Like you kind of ride with your guy. And I think as much as we're talking about Quinn Ewers here, I think he is an excellent quarterback, sure. And I think he can win you a national championship. Yeah. Now he's got to go do it.
And we talked a lot about that rushing pair of Wisner and Blue. Between the two of them, I mean, they've got about 16, almost 1,700 yards between the two of them. They can catch the ball well as well. I mean, they combine for 70 receptions. Yeah. So third team All SEC for Wisner. These guys, they both had over 100 yards, both had 2 touchdowns against Clemson, so they're certainly coming in hot. So what does this pair bring you, not just on the ground, but with the all-purpose component?
It's relentless. You can't let up because one guy gets tired, another guy comes in, and he's ready to hit you for 8 yards a pop, and he's got an offensive line that has bad intentions and is going to run downhill, and then they hit you over the top. So, I mean, and we've kind of talked about, okay, so without Bond, Texas doesn't have its speedster, but these are still receivers who were recruited to Texas. So it's tough, but I think their calling card is their run game, and they went into College Station and absolutely just punched the Aggies in the mouth. I mean, I almost felt bad watching it because it's just they paid all these money. These Aggie folks had just paid all this money to watch this game, and it's just boom, boom, boom. I mean, it's just 2nd and 3, 2nd and 1.
That's almost how I felt watching that game in Tucson this year. It's like that was a really bad effort,
right?
And
wasn't that bad. That was the Tucson one, man. That was
the worst effort to me. That was worse to me than the 72-7 game because that team just had 0 players on. They had 0 talent. Kevin Sumlin can't coach his way through anything.
Yeah.
At least there was. I mean, you got a guy who's going to be a top 10 pick, arguably the best receiver.
Right. I was surprised it wasn't more of a game, but yeah, the defense, like you said, it was optional. We went down for the Colorado game. We took the boys, and the Heisman Trophy winner decided at halftime he was good.
So speaking of that offensive line, real quick. So you mentioned like their ability to just like blast holes open in the run game. One thing that jumped out to me though is like only 4 teams in the country have given up more tackles for loss than Texas, and also kind of getting up 30 sacks, 92nd in the country. So is it kind of just like mostly boom and blowing holes, and then some bust? Like what's been the kind of the cause behind opponents being able to make plays in the backfield?
I think Quinn is. Are you talking about sacks? Sacks along with tackles for loss?
Yeah, both of them. Yeah, they're amongst the worst in the country.
Right. Interesting. I would imagine that defensive coordinators have to get very, very, very creative and run all kind of crazy stunts. I mean, Clemson had some success, and the defensive tackle's name escapes me, but he's the one who threw the crackback block and injured our starting center. And so I mean, I think it's like, we'll let you back in the game. We're talented, but it's, there's not a whole lot of tricks other than like, let's just line up and try to out athleticize you.
Yeah, and on that line, they've got arguably the best around, Kelvin Banks, the Outland Award winner, first-team All-American, first-team All-SEC, so big name there. In the pass game, I know they've got some talented receivers, as you talked about. These are Texas guys. Gunnar Helm really caught my attention with what he's done. 55 catches, 688 yards, 6 touchdowns, second-team All-SEC. That's someone that if ASU is trying to really focus too much on stopping that ground game, I would imagine he's someone that can make
and just a huge target, I think he's 6'5", 250, and I do feel like Quinn Ewers at times has so much confidence in his offense, he will hold the ball because he's like, somebody's going to get open. There's so many athletes here. So it's and I think that leads to the whole, we'll let you back in the game, because I don't know if it's overconfidence, but I think they're a confident team right now.
Other names to keep in mind as far as the pass game, wide receiver Matthew Golden has 49 catches for 787 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's a transfer from Houston. Talked about Isaiah Bond. He's got 532 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. He is injured. He's an Alabama transfer. True freshman Ryan Wingo, having a pretty good year so far. 26 catches, 417 yards.
Wingo's
2 touchdowns.
Solid, man.
Yeah, he was a big-time recruit, getting some early time for them.
All right, so it's about time we switch over to defense as we wind down. Now you got to head downstairs and host the extra point here shortly. But we talked.
Can we use a clip of this for the show? By the way, is that all right? Like a 3-minute clip?
Absolutely.
35 minutes to fill. Yeah,
there you go.
I mean,
we don't often get like these sort of planning on the air for people to get a little peek behind the curtain here. I like it.
I'm the whole McConaughey story.
Yeah, the table story.
Yeah.
But I mean, Joe, this is like a really just dominant defense. I mean, just number 2 in the country in yards per play, number 2 in opponent passer rating, number 2 in interceptions, number 5 in third down. Like, there's just really no weaknesses in this group, and I think it all starts up front. Yeah,
and then though that is the case, my goodness, the secondary is something special. We got Jade Barron, the Thorpe Award winner, first team All-America, first team All-SEC in the secondary there, 50 tackles, 5 picks, 11 pass breakups. Talked about Anthony Hill, linebacker, second team All-SEC.
He's good, man. He's good.
Leads the team with 99 tackles, 16 for loss, 7.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. I mean, those are some big time numbers there. Mark, you mentioned Colin Simmons. ASU pursued him. I'm not going to try to make it seem like they were really deep into it, but I believe he's from that Duncanville, if I'm not mistaken, that ASU has at least had some very strong ties to with Rashad Sample.
Yeah, that's the rival to Southlake, where they would always play Quinn Ewers in high school. But yeah, Duncanville's a machine. Duncanville's so good.
39 tackles for Simmons.
I've got a good Duncanville story from 1989 if you have time for it.
We'll finish this line. We'll get in. 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 3 forced fumbles for the true freshman. I saw him. Was he the national freshman of the? He's received some major hardware for.
Is that Colin Simmons?
Yeah,
National Freshman of the Year. Yep, that just came down today.
And let's talk about that offensive or that defensive line rather. It seems like it's like a rows of shark's teeth in terms of like Sweat and Murphy a year ago they go and it just like as you said, you called them earlier, dump trucks for defensive tackles. Yeah, who are the guys there that are looking to make Scat's life a living hell?
Baron Sorrell, Alfred Collins, Bill Norton, number 15, and Vernon Broughton. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Norton, oh my God. Yeah. That escaped my radar in the preparation. But then Ethan Burke comes in. He made the play of the game in the A&M game. You got Jermaine Lole, who's he was in and out. And you look at the numbers here. I was actually writing them down. I didn't have time to do the math, but I mean, it's just the defense. It's like, okay, 260 is a pass rushers, 320, 315, 335, 305, 305, and that's Broughton, Norton. I mean, Lole's 315, Alfred Collins. It's just a big dudes to move. ASU's offensive line, they have guys in 315s, 320s, but it's a new level of person to move around.
Collins was an interesting one to me. Just looking at some of the accolades, he was a second team All-America by the AP, but he didn't earn anything from the SEC. So somebody caught their eye.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did hear that the other day, and I didn't. That's another thing I was busy following up with other stuff. So yeah, I'm there's got to be some SEC bias. Maybe some people that are holding on to the old guard of it all. There's got to be. That's got to be Mark McClune reporting. I don't know.
So they're third in the SEC in rush defense. I was trying to look for any sort of can't call them weaknesses, but just any areas that is not number one. So that obviously is going to be a huge deal for ASU, and that's what the Sun Devils are going to try to do. Try to run Cam Scadaboo. To obviously try to use Sam Levitt with his feet there. So do you think ASU is going to have success at all running the ball, or is that going to be just a little too predictable to work for him?
I wouldn't make it how I'm going to win the game.
Yeah.
I think if you give it to Cam Scadaboo, you're going to have success. He's going to find a way, but I do feel like he's going to run into people who are going to try to hit him just as hard as he hits other people. Mm-hmm. And will he be successful? I'm not going to bet against him.
Yeah, but this is likely going to be the toughest matchup. I mean, I know it seems like a very basic statement to make that ASU's had under Kenny Dillingham. The only ones that would really compete. I mean, even though Washington beat Texas last year, I always felt like Washington was kind of on borrowed time last season. Right. I was surprised they made. That
was our secondary, and we fixed that. We went out and I mean, we got guys from Clemson and and
then the Oregon last year for ASU. But those would be the only ones that I think would really match up with this as far as just overall talented team. So this is going to be obviously naturally when you're in this position, when you're in the Elite Eight of college football, you're not going to be playing slouches. That's for sure.
All right. I think it's about time for the three keys.
Do I get to tell my 1989 Duncanville story that relates to the Pittsburgh Steelers first? Okay, real quick. All right, Duncanville High, outside of Dallas, really, really, really talented players. So Barry Foster, the former Steeler running back.
My favorite player of all time, the reason the 29's in my handle.
Is it really? Oh, okay, well, then this works perfectly on this podcast, and I'll tell it quickly. So I grew up in Plano, outside of Dallas, and they won 2 state championships when I was a kid, and a big reason why I'm doing this is watching Plano coverage on the news. Barry Foster was the best player for Duncanville. It was number 1 versus number 2 in the city of Dallas. We were so excited. I'm in the 5th grade. We get to the game an hour early. We're watching Barry Foster warm up, and we're like, all right, Plano's got it tonight, man. They're gonna beat Duncanville. Their opening kickoff, they kick it away from Barry Foster, other side of the field. So he's here. Ball's over here, runs over, picks up the ball with one hand, and houses it. First play of the game. And it wasn't a game. It was over from that moment. That's my Duncanville Steelers, Brad Denny, bringing all things full circle.
That warms my heart on this day after
he
Christmas.
He was a dude. Yeah.
The 42 in my handle is probably pretty predictable. All right, so how are we going to have Mark do the key? Is he going keys for ASU? Is he doing the devil's advocate?
I think he's like devil's advocate, 3 keys, which I mean they might be just be the same
ASU,
thing
for ASU.
So we kind of alternate. We'll go.
Sam's the man.
Yeah,
that's my first key. I think I said it. I think in the last episode. I think ASU maybe let Scat down in terms of not getting the PR machine Heisman hype. Granted, it's probably kind of a little bit out of nowhere. So I'll give him a pass there, but he's already Sam Levitt's getting some Heisman buzz already. And I think if ASU is going to have any chance in this game, he's got to go insane. He's got to be a dual threat monster. So I think key number 1, this is the official launch of Sam Levitt Heisman's campaign.
Yes.
And I think what plays into that, my first key is you got to be creative but not overwhelmingly gimmicky and cute in the pass game because of the strength of the pass defense for Texas. I think, again, you got to be creative with it, involving your running backs, involving your tight ends, things like that. But I just don't like when you get cute for the sake of being cute or trying to catch them on their heels. I mean, that's how things can go south in a hurry. But ASU, surprisingly to me, had a great deal of luck in the pass game against Iowa State. Like I said earlier, I'm not saying I'm comparing the athletes of the team of Iowa State to Texas. They just had a very good pass defense statistically. So at least there's that piece that they had success with, but they're going to have to really be, again, creative with what they do. You saw some of that creativity in that Big 12 championship game, like that 4th and short call that went to Stovall. That's a gutsy thing. You heard about Marcus Arroyo talking about how when he called the play, it was just
cricket
silence on the headsets.
I asked him about that. You'll hear his answer tomorrow night at the extra point at 10:35.
All right.
Beautiful.
You want the bite for next week's show?
If the game turns out well.
I guess, yeah. Well, okay. So, I guess this is the last show. Okay, sorry. Yeah. My calendar's a little off at the end of this year.
All right. So I guess, are we doing Texas Keys over there?
Texas Keys. Okay, so we did Sam's the Man or Super Sam. Texas Keys, is hammer it. Or how about all right. There you go. First down, second down, third down. All right.
That was all 3 keys at once. There you go.
Yep. I mean, Wisner, the wise thing to do is to hand it to Wisner.
All right.
Until you're blue in the face.
There you go. Look at this. This is a PR machine here. My number 2 key is just to be on the right side of the rust, not rest factor. Because I don't know if any team in the country was playing as well as ASU was over the last 5 weeks of the season. Now you take them out of the mix for 3 weeks or so. How are they going to come out? Are they going to pick up where they left off, a little bit healthier, spring in the step, or is that going to throw off that rhythm? Really concerned about that, but if they're going to have any kind of chance, they've got to kind of pick up and carry that same momentum forward.
And so interesting how that does become a factor, and it's a legitimate thing. Like, are they going to be too rested and maybe a little rusty? Because you would think in a game of football that rest would always be the best answer to get healthy, but it's just not always the case. Sometimes you want to keep getting punched in the mouth if you're the ones that are being the aggressor and being successful with it.
I actually had people in the second half of the Iowa State game tweeting at me saying ASU needs to lay off, not run it up, so they don't get the bye for that momentum. But which I think is you always take the bye.
Yeah, you take the points, you take the bye, you take the advantageous thing. You don't
deal
overthink
with that.
it.
But, I mean, that was just like because it is on the mind of some people, and because they were rolling so well.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's one of the wildest things I've ever seen. If I would have told you first week of November the Cardinals would not be playing meaningful games at this point in 2024, and ASU would have one on the schedule first day of 2025, what would you have told me?
God. Or if you would have just told me on 12 months ago that that ASU football would be like the most stable and successful sports story of 2024 in the Phoenix area. That
I saw somebody say something like, "Yeah, Kenny's got the whole valley. Like the eggs are all in his baskets. Like Suns are
he's activated the valley.
Yeah, and like the Suns are bad. D-backs not signing anybody. Cardinals are falling apart.
We don't have a hockey team.
No hockey team.
Well, interesting story about Kenny. Last year, he was outside of the 16th hole, and one of the security guys wasn't going to let him in. And we're like, dude, it's the coach of ASU. And so I told the guy, and then I went and got Sean McLaughlin, and he got in, and he did interviews with all of us, and he's getting everybody fired up. And I remember thinking at the time, like, I don't think this is going to be a problem at some point. I didn't know it would be 1 year later you're in the college football playoff.
Like the prophecies. I mean, you see stuff from the introductory press conferences, or even like I saw somebody posted something. It was the post game from the Washington game last year, and it's just like we're this close, like we're gonna win. And these things that at the time it's like, all right, that'd be. To steal a line from your guy would be a lot cooler if he did, man, But, yeah, it's just remarkable. But getting back to the keys, my second one, you got to disrupt the Texas offense somehow. You talked about those turnovers. It'd be real nice if you get like another 3 straight possession turnover party like you had against Iowa State. Like I was on a different planet when that was happening. That was unbelievable. But ASU obviously going to have to steal some possessions on this one.
We're not saying it's not going to happen over here. It's happened. It's not very fun. But, yeah, you'll get the ball.
And so, my third key is, just kind of maybe it's just so obvious, but you got to force Quinn Ewers into some Quinn Ewers type of mistakes.
Right.
And ASU's front six has not been able to get home into the backfield a whole lot. Pass rush has been kind of MIA the last half of the season. That needs to change. Maybe that extra rest got some spring in their step or something, but rattle him a little bit because you're going to need to steal those possessions.
I think lastly for me, it's just, being who you are, play your game, bring your energy, bring what got you here, because this is obviously a huge step up. ASU's played some challenging teams in the Big 12, but not really those like national brands, even that they were playing in the Pac-12 like an Oregon or a USC or a Washington when they had that high level success. So you didn't really have as incredible as that BYU game was, and that's a very memorable game. It didn't have necessarily that cachet of like a Notre Dame or a USC. So this is a big thing for ASU. So you don't want to come into this game and play scared, especially with all the players that ASU has from the state of Texas, a bunch of players that played at UT. You just don't want to get inside your own head. You've been playing with nothing to lose for a very long time and having a lot of fun and a lot of success doing it. Just dance with who you came with. You know what I'm saying?
Here's the speech. Nobody believes you're going to win this game except the people in this locker room. And the coaching staff that put together the game plan is going to give you a chance to win the game, and we believe in you. Go do it. Go shock the world. Yeah. First day of 2025.
You can't fly to Georgia. Maybe we'll have to drive you out there to deliver that speech.
Or just Norman Dale from Hoosiers. Get everybody clapping.
There you go.
Does that still work?
Yeah.
Think everybody claps and you're going to clap with me? No? Come on. Like the Hoosiers.
There we go.
There we go.
We
We
were
gotta
on-
clap
we
at the
were
same
on.
time.
We were on.
You know, the
We were on
Hoosiers,
for
like the
I've
movie.
seen the first
Yeah,
half of Hoosiers.
What?
Oh, man.
Okay, that's another
Hoosiers,
podcast.
That's
That's another. Okay.
All right, so
I thought
I have to wear
had
doubles.
I known that, I might not have come up here. No.
So in a weird, like, I don't know how this, like, you trace back the actual roots, but because ASU went to a bowl game this year, I have to watch Devil Wears Prada.
Oh,
the Ralph Amsden bet from
with a female friend.
I mean, I do have a lovely and amazing girlfriend who I'm
Yeah.
sure would be willing
Okay,
to
well,
watch
that's
that.
all right,
But
yeah.
it was a weird talking point. I don't know
Yeah.
how it started with our good buddy Ralph Amsden, and then we had him on earlier this year, and it was at
That's
a
a
point
very
where
Ralph
ASU
thing.
was rolling, but not yet
Yeah.
had reached bowl eligibility, and
Yeah.
that's where the bar was. Even as recently as probably early October, like, hey, if ASU makes a bowl game, that's worth doing something
you
you've
gotta
never
live
done.
tweet this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, so
I think you should have to watch it with Ralph on like a really small couch. Yes. Where's Ralph? Is Ralph available? Should we call him? It's like
Zoom's
midnight
on
where
the
he lives.
spot.
Yeah.
He's awake for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
All
gosh,
right.
yeah.
So as we close things down here, now it's time. We've
Yeah.
talked about this game, all the aspects.
Yeah.
Time to lay out our predictions. Go on the line. Go on the record. Mark, you're the guest. Start us off. Just how you see this game playing out, and cap it with a final score prediction.
I'm sorry to do this. 31-14, and I think it could be worse. If Texas plays its type of game. Hope I'm wrong. Hope we get a great game. And if Texas were to get upset by Arizona State, I would be very happy for a lot of people in that building. I'd be very happy for the two of you with the passion that you put into this and getting to go along for this ride. I mean, this is my community. So I don't live in Texas anymore. I just follow it and cheer for the team. But I mean, my people have the trident.
Well, I'm right there with you in terms of seeing ASU's run coming to an end. I do think that it's going to be maybe a little bit closer, but I do think ultimately, like you've been hammering that point home, hammering has been the key. Like I just think ASU, this has been like the come up year. Like this is the year we see in the NBA a lot. Just like teams that have been struggling, that's starting to get good. You got to learn how to win. This is like to learn how to win. They've done it. They know they can do it. And we always thought, we talked about all year, like we thought like this program is so far ahead of schedule that all of a sudden the timeline's moved up. So now like 2025 is like, okay, now they make the noise here. This is a great story. No matter what happens on January 1st, it will diminish this none at all. I just think Texas is too talented. And they're gonna probably push ASU around a lot in this game. Might be some big plays, big moments. This is a ASU team that's so full of resiliency. Not enough. 31-24 Texas.
So I've made a lot of decisions in my life. People say, "What were you thinking? Where's your brain?" You know,
All right.
logic
It's gonna be the
and
premium
intelligence
podcast.
hasn't always been my strongest suit. Sometimes you just go with your heart. Sometimes you go with your gut. Sometimes you say, "We didn't come this far just to make it this far." Sometimes you say, "You know what? They've been overcoming the odds all year. Why not overcome the odds on the biggest stage of them all?" When you're an underdog, I'm certain by the most significant margin that you faced all year. For all the people that say that you shouldn't be here, all the people that say the Big 12 is weak, all the people that say you shouldn't have had to buy whatever folks want to say that you shouldn't have something or you shouldn't be in a certain position. Why not? Why not continue the dream? You know, this is the spot where we can be dreamers still. The logic may prove something else, but for right now, I spent a lot of time, not necessarily questioning or doubting this team by any stretch, but just thinking that, all right, they're not up to this challenge. They're not there yet, kind of like Brad was saying. But each time, they'd prove me wrong and prove me wrong and prove a lot of people wrong. So for me, you know what? I'm going to be that guy that just allows this dream, this miracle to continue. ASU wins 24-21.
Oh, if that happens, Brad and I will watch Hoosiers on a very small couch. I feel like you have to watch that if you want the upset to happen. Yeah.
And then, meanwhile, Ralph and I we'll get like two separate rooms. Please. And we'll have like some FaceTime thing going on.
So maybe like same beanbag chair. Maybe.
Gosh, yeah. We got to like drink the same cup with two straws or something like that. Yeah. There will be things on the line. You know what? For this one, I'm saying let it ride. But the greatest thing about it for ASU is, it's a no-lose situation. And that's like,
money.
For me, the hugest
Turn
thing
it loose, man.
to get to this point, that's like when ASU was going to that Big 12 championship game, especially without Jordan Tyson, and I'm like, man, like if he's there, you feel really good about it.
I feel better about this game if he's there.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. But getting to this point, winning the conference championship and getting in the playoff and having that just on your resume, be able to sell that for recruiting purposes and fan purposes and all other things, I think you've gotten to a point that you can really, really sell on. Now, obviously, if you happen to advance, that's just house money on top of house money. But there's no outcome to this game that Sun Devil fans should feel, truly disappointed or anything like that in. I'm actually curious, and we might have to do a straw poll or something like that of kind of where Sun Devil fans' heads are, in this game. Is it like if ASU goes out and loses, are they going to feel like I felt as a 14-year-old in that Rose Bowl on New Year's Day '97 losing to Ohio State, like this is a low point, or is it going to be a house money kind of thing? But regardless, just looking for the best that ASU has to offer as far as energy is concerned, and see what that gets them.
All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our guests, Mark McClune. Mark, for anybody who has
got my horns up over here, by the way.
Yeah. But we got to match that.
That's all right.
That
yeah,
energy.
we're in your head. See, we're in your head.
Are we being fined?
Usually, I'm a supporter of all things the state of Texas, but this is a respite I've got to take.
Are we going to get fined by the SEC $20,000? Whatever.
We're good. Yeah, your money's no good here. Keep doing it.
Can you pick it up? Pick up the tab for us, Mark.
So, if any folks,
once I get this podcast going, the other podcast, yeah.
Any folks who are perhaps new to the Valley, because you've been in an institution for so long, how can they keep up with what you're doing?
Just on social media, Instagram, Mark McClune TV, Twitter, Mark McClune, and the Extra Point, 10:35 every night on Arizona's Family 3 TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com. You can watch the live stream. And, we'll be there every step of the way. Gina Maravilla is going to go out there and cover the game, and Brad Denny will be appearing in the Extra Point. Look forward to hearing what you guys have to say and breaking it all down. And, this is exciting. This is fun. We don't get this very often, so enjoy it.
Yeah, what were we talking about, late December of 2023? Certainly wasn't a high-stakes football game. We were probably just coming up with some all-time list or some way to fill the time.
Yeah, I think it was like, we were trying to make a Festivus-themed Sun Devil episode or something. Feats of strength, airing of grievances.
That list was long. Yeah.
Right. Good. I'm so glad for y'all.
Perspective.
Awesome.
Perspective is a good thing to have.
All right. So, of course, be sure to follow the show on the social media side of things, on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, Instagram at Speak of the Devils. Follow us on YouTube and on Facebook, and give me a follow on all things social at BDenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy42. Got to give a huge thank you and shout out to our awesome sponsors, Cactus Sports, Jones Auto Group, Burrito Express, DevilsDigest.com, Spaghetti Shack, Sun Devil Family Charities, and Brad's got one more for you.
And Home Field Apparel, 9 new items just dropped in their ASU collection. Really great, especially a new Sparky kind of vintage sunburst design on a couple items as well. But best of all, 15% off your first order at the Good Brand by using offer code SUN24, SUN24 at checkout. All right, here we are. We will be back next week, and maybe we're talking about a run of the Cotton Bowl. Maybe we're putting a cap on a fantastic season. By the way, one time a year.